Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on September 11th, 2021 at approximately 7:33 a.m. PST. Well, finally got a plan in place, an organizational plan, if you will. So, what we're talking about today is thought, where all things start. Okay. And they really do. I mean, we can go into the esoteric side of that, but the way that you alter your life, and it doesn't matter what you're doing, doesn't matter where you are, we're all starting from exactly the same place. Right here, right now. No matter how you got here, this is where you are. Now, with this said, before I forget, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, so that we can get the rest of the information out, because the next several weeks I've got laid out very solidly, and I'll go into that in just 5 seconds here. Okay, but these are tools that I personally use. So when I'm talking about being a spiritual guide, and these are the paths to go, these are roads that I personally walk down. It's not ones that I'm saying, oh, do this, it'll work for you. Okay, I just don't believe in that, personally. Now, there are times when I've had to, for instance, telling people how to quit smoking. I never started, and I'll be danged if I'm going to start smoking now just to figure out if I was right. So we're going to start with thought today. The thought of how to correct where your life is going. Okay, it really is time for me to get organized, which is why I've pulled back from everybody like I said I was doing yesterday. Okay, but rest assured, I'm not bringing the videos to an end. So here's the way this goes. All of this change starts with a thought. You come up with an idea of, gee, this would be nice, but until that trickles down into the emotional imperative, until it gets into your heart and you go, I really desire, I would really like to experience this, or I would really like this to end. Okay, until you've got that emotional drive, you're not going to think very much further on it. But once you have that emotional drive, right here, okay, and this actually is, when we sidetrack a fraction, this is where your heart chakra is. And we will get to those down the road as far as where the chakras sit and what they're actually for and why they sit there. But for the moment, when you get that thought into an emotional imperative where it is something you really desire to have, then your brain starts kicking in. And your brain, what happens with your brain is it figures out a logical way to attain this. Okay. Now, there's an old saying that goes, when your heart and your head are in conflict, follow your heart, but use your head to get there. And that's what this boils down to. You're following your heart, but you're using your brain to get turned around and actually get things to happen. Now, so we've got that going on now. You've got this imperative of where are we going from there? How do we do it? So you work out this plan. Now, in a nutshell, before I get into the plan, okay, today we're dealing with thought. Tomorrow we will deal with choice. Okay, once we deal with choice, we will spend a few days on the plan, because that's going to take a couple of days to sort things out. Then we will go to creation. Once we go to creation, the next step will be to go to foundation. Okay, then you build on that, you go into expansion, and we go into community. Once we get into community, then we will find out how self-awareness comes into play. Okay, once you've got the self-awareness done, we're going to be dealing with prosperity. Okay, now, prosperity, you can take that any way you desire. The next phase will be looking at discrimination. Now, understand, we are not talking about discrimination as in racial. We are talking about discrimination about which refers to fine-tuning choices. Okay. Then we are going to go into awareness. Okay, and see how all of this pulls together. Next, the next step, we'll be looking at understanding. Once we hit the understanding, the next step is wisdom, and we'll cover all that. That's over the next several days. Like I said, I finally managed to get an idea in my head that I can follow through with that makes functional sense. So back to this issue of thought. Whatever you're looking at, whether this is a case of thinking about a business, about starting a business you've been dreaming of doing, or one that has just come into your mind. If it's the thought of going into a partnership with somebody, okay, or maybe you've got an invention you're working on. Perhaps you've got a hobby that you put on hold. Okay, and these are things that you've thought about doing, but you've never understood what to do with them. It's like, where do I start? Well, where you start is the easy part, right where you are. Doesn't matter how you got to where you are, you start right where you are. Okay, and that's where this funny little, where'd that go? I need this so I can actually look at the board while I'm doing this. Remember that thing I mentioned about a list? Well, this is what I'm working on right here to make sure these channels the next few days come out quite adequately. So again, we're going to start with thought first. Then we will go to choice. Okay, once we get to choice, we would go to plan. Now, bear in mind, planning is only part of the key of success, and that is something we will get to down the road. Okay, once we've dealt with plan, we would go to creation, and we are not talking about creation as in what the religions tell you. We are talking about physically taking a conglomeration of things and turning them into something else. See, energy never stops. You cannot destroy it. You can alter it, you can change its direction, but you cannot destroy it. It is there. Now, the funny part is, you can remove all the electrons from an atom. Okay. Now, as long as you've got one electron around an atom, you're looking at hydrogen. But what happens, what do they call it when they remove that one electron and you have this null point? This atom that has no electrons. I don't personally know what the name is that people are calling it. I just know it exists. So once we get through creation, we are going to deal with foundation. Now, all of these things will build on the other. Once you've got foundation, then we will deal with expansion. And expansion is where most people make the mistake of thinking that's what prosperity is. When you start gathering more things or building more things around you. That is a very small part of it. Expansion also includes increasing your intellect, increasing your awareness. Okay, once we get to the expansion, then we have to deal with community. Okay, and then after community, we will get to self-awareness. Now, you'll notice I am writing this stuff down, and the reason for that is to make sure that I stay on track, so when you guys go, what's coming up, I can tell you, this is what's coming up. Or more to the point, when I tell you it's coming up, I know it is. Now, once we have self-awareness down, then we start looking at prosperity. Okay, and bear in mind, prosperity is not a balance in your bank book. Prosperity is a feeling. It really is a solid feeling. Once you have prosperity, then you have discrimination. Okay, and again, discrimination is not about what color somebody is. It is about making a refined choice. Deciding, I've got the option of blueberries or I've got the option of blackberries. That's a choice. Discrimination is being able to tell them apart in various different ways. That's another definition of discrimination, but we will get to that. Then, once we get to that, we have, after you get discrimination, you have awareness. Okay, now, I've covered self-awareness before. A few days before that, I will be covering self-awareness. And that boils down to understanding you. When we talk about awareness, we are talking about a much bigger project, a much bigger concept. Once we've got the awareness, then we go to understanding. Okay. Now, bear in mind, all of this is simply the way I see the world. Okay. It may not be the way you see it. It may not be, it's certainly not the only way, but it is the way I see the world. Once we get down the understanding side of it, then we will bring it all together with this neat little wisdom thing. Now, here's the funny part about wisdom. Okay. There is an old saying that goes, God grant me the strength to change the things I can change. The courage to change the things I can change. The serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, I run into that problem myself. Okay. Of course, I do have somewhat extenuating circumstances. And what I'm doing is walking you through, and part of this is for me in all fairness, but I'm walking you through the steps on how to take a thought into into an actual creation. Now, this applies to no matter what you're doing. This same process applies to everything you do. You'll go through some steps very quickly. Like some people take a very long time to come up with an original thought. Okay, in all fairness, I don't know if there is an original thought. Okay, I really don't. No matter how far back I take it. But some people take a while to formulate a concept. Okay. And with that in mind, put that back out of the way. Yes, I still putter. With that in mind, we're going to walk through the method so that you can take whatever it is you're working on, whether it's an old project you started, or whether it's a concept, maybe it's a way of life that your life has been doing really stupid things in your eyes. Never mind what anybody else tells you. Okay. I spent 56 years living in absolute chaos. That over there is mild compared to what I used to work with. Looking for my coffee. Put that over there where it's not quite so hard to get to. So we start with thought. What is it you're aiming at? Have you put a project on hold that you're having trouble getting started? That you're having trouble figuring out where to go, where to start, how to get reconnected with that project? For whatever reason, did you put the project on hold because life got in the way? Or because somebody else told you you can't do it? Well, I will tell you, if you look back through my videos, there's a subset called language. And I covered the word can't in that particular subset. Okay, go back and listen to it. It may help you. But you get this thought in your head of what you're aiming for, of something that you desire to alter. Now, all of this ties to the way that energy works. Okay, when we talk about nothing, that you can't observe it or that you don't observe it is more to the point. I look at, for instance, a computer, and I can see the energy crackling around it. Okay, I can see the heat waves, I can see the movements. Okay, now you might call that imagination, and call it what you will. Imagination is, quite frankly, the key, the real key to awareness. Because, and it's not a question of delusion. Okay, delusion says, I'm going to stay, if I step off that wall, off that balcony, I won't fall. The odds are you're going to hit the pavement. Okay. Thinking you can fly with no foundation to it, with no functional proof, okay, is not a real good idea. I mean, you can think it, absolutely. And astral travel does work. And again, these are all concepts that might jump a few things. But take a look at whatever it is that your thought is that you desire to change. understand the concept of feng shui. I hope I pronounced that right according to the Easterners. It's the way that I pronounce it, so it has to work that way for me. But when we take a look at the energy, okay, you organize things, and that sign right there, I am worth it, is the most powerful combination of 4 words that I've ever run into this lifetime regarding self-esteem and self-motivation. Okay, you take the thought wherever it is, you start right where you are. Okay, have a sheet of paper beside you. Now, most people, I'm laying odds, do things like the majority of people are set up to work right-handed. Eventually, I will get a small table in here so I can actually work on both sides. But I have to be careful because I don't want to lose the bottom shelf here. So for the moment, it's going to sit. But I will end up doing that. Okay, I just have to find one that will snug up nicely. And then I don't have to worry about it. Now, with that in mind, you get a thought. Okay, whatever it is, wherever you're sitting, start the thought down. It doesn't matter what it is. Okay, this can be a new business, and absolutely, if you've got things that you would like to go into more detail on, absolutely drop me a line in the comments below. If you've got a more private one that you desire to ask me, drop me a message in any one of the contact points below, and I will do my best to get back to them as quick as I can. Okay, the way my life goes, there's no telling what I'm up to most of the time. But I am getting a little more organized, and this is one of the reasons why I pulled away from everybody. Okay, in the physical sense. Well, just about everybody. There are a couple of people I still deal with, face to face, not the least of which is my son. Okay, well, both my sons, just the one I live with, so I see him a lot more often. With that in mind, okay, I'm taking a look at the situation I've got here. And where it comes to a project, doesn't matter what it is. Start right where you are. Yes, I get sidetracked. Get it listed on paper. Now, like I said, put down the steps, however small they are. Make them no larger than 15 minutes to a half hour. The reason for that is because if you make them longer, okay, if you make the projects longer than 15 minutes to a half an hour, you run into a pretty serious snag. Okay, and that snag is you may get pulled away and then feel like you didn't get anything done. Okay, so get the list together and then start checking them off. Where it comes to and it doesn't matter what it is, put a title on it, and I call them working titles. Of course, if you happen to be an aspiring author, don't let anybody tell you that you cannot do it. But do be aware you have to have an income to keep a roof over your head while you're doing it. Because I will tell you, I can only at this point imagine what it would be like trying to put all my thoughts on paper if I didn't have a roof over my head. Okay, so get it started on paper. Once you put it on paper, you've now taken it out of the etheric plane, out of the level of thought, and brought it into the physical world where it can now be made manifest. And whether you believe the list thing works or not doesn't really matter. If you haven't experienced it, don't say it doesn't work. Okay, if you make the effort and it doesn't work for you, that's understandable. That does happen to some people. I use pen and paper because I'm a bit of a dinosaur, which is a whole different conversation. But you take the thought and you go, okay, where do I start? Well, where you start is right where you're sitting. And in order to attain that, take a look at whatever is sitting around you that you're not content with, that is not working towards that goal that you've got. Okay. Now, for me, I will tell you, straightening all the junk out of the office is only the starting point. Okay, and I'm going to be going through it, and you'll find this shifts behind me as we go along. The one thing that won't change much is that neat little sign there. Pardon the handwriting, it's garbage. Okay, if you've got the ability to zoom in, then you can go back and read it. It's not exactly a secret. It says, I have legally attained a minimum of $2,000 by September 30th, 2021 at 23:59. That is military for 1 minute to midnight. Okay. That's what I require to run my household. Okay. And I have spent an enormous amount of time overextending myself. Okay. So this whole thing is a reset right from the ground up. Okay. And I'm going to walk you through it because, first of all, this is going to sound selfish. First of all, it helps me stay focused, helps me stay on track, which means my life gets better. Now, the easier it is for me to cope with things, especially with the way the society is working right now, the more functional I can become. So I start with the thought process, get it down physically onto paper. Okay, now that I've got it on paper, I can start working with it. Okay, in all fairness, some of the things that are ongoing here, aside from the little odds and ends, I've got 2 books on here that I am currently reading. Quite frankly, one of them, and my reasonings for them are simple. In the case of the Bible, I gave my dad and my father my word that I would read the thing cover to cover. So, I have listed it here, in simplest terms, because I track it, I right now am I only started doing this a little while ago, but I currently am into reading Deuteronomy 4. Okay, chapter 4. I keep tabs on that. I've got another book, which is called it's an encyclopedia. I've already read the entire encyclopedia. And I'm currently reading the Parent's Guide, which is in the back of the final book. It's the Index and Parent's Guide. I am currently reading it. And I'm keeping track. Right now I'm on page 69. I'm keeping track of it so that I can go through it. And every day I can read a little bit. And what that will do is it will eventually write those books off. I will finish them completely. Now, you can well imagine the Bible is a pretty big one to write. Okay. I've got a number of other little projects here. I don't need to go into them. The point being, the list works. Okay. By clearing the junk out of the way, by getting things rearranged, what ends up happening is I get the energy moving. I get more energy. I get more, shall we say, more agreeable with people. Not that I'll agree with them. Rest assured, the way society is going, one of the biggest reasons I've pulled back from society in general is because I don't agree with the way it's going. It has gotten so far off track. And if you're following a spiritual guide that is telling you, you must fear your creator, you must fear the people around you, or you must give up all your material stuff because the material stuff is evil, you might want to take a look at whether or not that's the right person to follow. I'll tell you right now, I don't have a lot of money. I got a lot of junk. I am not well off. Okay. I know back in February, I guess, I had well over $50,000 in my hand. Okay. At this point, I've got less than 10. Now, you don't need to know that in all fairness. The point being, I'm not trying to sell off this idea that I'm a multimillionaire. Now, don't get me wrong. That was just wrong. Don't get me wrong. I have no objection to money, but I will tell you, money is simply a barter system. Okay, that's it. It is not something that is evil or good. Because in case you haven't noticed, money doesn't care whether you're a nice person or a bad person. You want an example of that? Take a look at the nicest philanthropist you know. And that might be just a person on the street that gives their time, that will, give you part of their meal even if they're on the street. Nice people. Okay, bypassing the idea of taking care of themselves, but they are nice people. Okay, and then you have your drug lords. Okay, now, drug lords, anybody that goes around killing people just because, I question whether that's good or evil. Yes, sometimes people have to die to stop a worse problem. Okay, like sometimes a limb has to be cut off to stop something from killing you. If your arm has gone gangrene, okay, gotten really, really poison infected, sometimes you literally have to cut the arm off so that you can live. Now, some people will argue whether that's a good thing. Okay, but picking a fight with other people is, yes, it's a thought, but it is completely counterproductive. Okay, and this is where you take a look at people in power and go, are they doing something that is beneficial? Are you following somebody that is in alignment with what you believe? And bear in mind, I still, no matter what anybody looks at, I still look at the three karmic laws. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. Okay, so I've laid out throughout this particular video the next several days of video, and that has got me in a good path in my eyes. Okay, so will I agree with everybody? No, but if you're following a spiritual guide that is telling you fear is a good thing, frankly, it's not. It'll keep you out of certain troubles, but it causes more problem than it's worth. If they tell you money is the root of all evil, I'll tell you right now, they're leading you down the wrong path. Money existed way after evil came into existence. Evil simply boils down to going against karmic law. Okay. If you're going against karmic law, because karmic law applies to everybody and everything, it doesn't matter where you come from. Okay. But that's what evil is. It is going against karmic law. Okay. So if they're telling you that the material world is evil, okay, then frankly, you might want to reconsider. Now, is it necessary to hang on to an exorbitant amount of stuff? Frankly, no. Not my opinion. Well, what happens if the world collapses? Well, if the world collapses, we have to deal with it. And the way things are going, you can bet your bottom dollar that's a potential. Especially for many people's worlds. For people's specific worlds. I know of one person whose entire world got turned upside down. They ended up ill, and they ended up losing the ability to do what they were doing. To them, that was their world. Okay. For me, it boils down to, I've still got full mobility. Yes, I've got a bad leg for the time being. But I will get that healed to the point where it's not a big problem. Okay. My eyes, I'm in the process of healing. But like I said, take a look at where you are, whether it's a new business that you're looking at, a change in the way your house is running, a project you've put on hold for who knows how long. It all starts with a thought. Okay. Now, I keep these down to a half hour. Okay. So it starts with a thought. Tomorrow, we will come in, we will deal with choice. Okay. And then we'll go from there. But until then, because I will be back again tomorrow, until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.